Witness the power that changes our world. Welcome to the El Niño season.
Welcome to your dose of wowness, day 100. 100 consecutive daily explainers. If you have been here since the beginning, thank you. If you found this channel somewhere in the middle, you picked a good arc to land in. Now, the arc finale. Okay, let's dive into this. I need you to imagine something for a second. The Walker circulation has been humming along for at least 130,000 years. The ENSO cycle, El Niño and La Niña swinging back and forth on a 2 to 7 year rhythm, has literally been operating for longer than our species has even existed. The jet stream? It's been firing weather from west to east across the mid-latitudes since before the very first human being stood upright. Right? These are ancient, deeply entrenched systems. They are not new phenomena produced by a changing climate. They are the absolute foundational machinery of Earth's atmosphere. The exact same machinery that choked off the Indian monsoon in 1877, flooded a full third of Pakistan in 2022, and locked a brutal heat dome over British Columbia in 2021. The machine has not changed. What has changed is the planet it's running on. The ocean it sucks energy from is hotter. The atmosphere wrapping around it is heavier with moisture. The Arctic confining that jet stream is shrinking. And the burning question the last 4 explainers have been aggressively building toward is simply this. What does the same ancient machine do when you force it to run on a completely different planet? Well, the answer breaks down into 3 parts. What is already happening right now, what the models project is coming, and what we genuinely do not yet know. This is day 100. Let's finish the arc.
Climate change is already altering every El Niño and La Niña event, not by changing the mechanism, but by changing the medium it operates in. The atmosphere holds 7% more moisture per degree of warming. The ocean is warmer before El Niño even begins. The coral reefs are already at their thermal limit before the additional heat arrives. These are not projections. They are documented observations from events that have already happened. The 2022 Pakistan floods, the 2021 heat dome, the 2023-24 bleaching event. The amplification is not coming. It is here.
You need to understand the fundamental math of our atmosphere, specifically a physical principle known as the Clausius-Clapeyron equation. It's not just theory, it dictates a very stark, unavoidable reality. For every single degree Celsius of warming, the atmosphere can hold approximately 7% more water vapor. So when La Niña rolls in and naturally enhances rainfall, that extra atmospheric moisture mathematically guarantees heavier, far more destructive floods. Just look at the waters that swallowed a third of Pakistan in 2022. The attribution study for that disaster measured a massive 50% spike in flood probability driven directly by that background warming. And guess what? It works in reverse too. When El Niño drives droughts, it's doing so in environments where evaporation is just violently extracting moisture from soils, plants, and surface waters that are already heavily heat-stressed. The 2021 Pacific Northwest heat dome operated on exactly these amplified baseline rules. You are watching a planetary system where the floor has literally been raised on every single extreme event. And this brilliantly illustrates the horrific cost of that raised floor. The world's oceans have absorbed roughly 90% of all the excess heat added since the Industrial Revolution. That bumps the baseline sea surface temperature of the tropical Pacific by about 0.5 to 0.8 degrees Celsius. So, when an El Niño shows up and adds its own natural heat, it hits a much, much higher peak. Coral reefs start to bleach when temperatures push just 1 degree above their local summer maximum. Look at this timeline. 1998 was the first global bleaching event, then 2010, then 2016, then 2023 into 2024. Each successive El Niño now triggers catastrophic coral death at intensity thresholds that previously wouldn't have caused widespread bleaching at all. This baseline shift is weaponizing totally moderate natural events.
The most important study on the future of extreme El Niño events was published in Nature Climate Change in 2023. It analyzed 40 next-generation CMIP-6 climate models and found that the frequency of super El Niños, events comparable to 1997-98 and 1877, is projected to approximately double under high-emission scenarios by 2100. I want to walk through exactly what that finding means, what the physical mechanism driving it is, and what the competing projection says, because there is a competing projection, and the disagreement between them is the most important open question in tropical climate science.
You absolutely have to understand that the climate models are fiercely divided on the long-term fate of the Walker circulation, the actual engine driving ENSO. On one side, a projection shows the Walker circulation weakening under continued warming. Why? Because greenhouse gases heat the atmosphere faster than the ocean surface, which chokes off the convective instability it relies on. If the Walker circulation slows down, El Niño intensity might actually drop. But the competing projection argues the exact opposite, that the Walker circulation will strengthen,
They point to hard observational data from 1980 to 2014 showing the circulation intensifying even as greenhouse forcing ramped up. And a stronger Walker circulation makes the KAI studies doubling of super El Niños highly likely. Listen to me, both of these projections cannot be correct. The models fundamentally disagree on which feedback loop dominates under high-emission scenarios. The science here is completely unsettled, and your future climate depends heavily on which of these models wins out.
In 2023 and 2024, the global mean temperature exceeded 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial average for the first time in recorded history. That exceedance was temporary, driven by a strong El Niño layered on top of the long-term warming trend. But here is what it means in practical terms. Every El Niño event from the mid-2030s onward will operate on a background that is as warm as 2023-24 was at its El Niño peak. The events of those years, the coral bleaching, the heat records, the compound droughts, will be the new baseline, not the new extreme.
To really grasp what that new baseline implies, just look at the most visible casualty of that 2023 to 2024 event. An estimated 77% of the world's assessed coral reef area experienced bleaching level heat stress. 77%! That makes it the most geographically extensive bleaching event ever recorded by humans. We're talking about reef systems that previously only bleached during absolute monster El Niños, suddenly bleaching in 2023 at moderate El Niño intensities. And if that thermal stress persists past 8 weeks, the coral just starves and dies. That threatens entire ecosystems that support a quarter of all marine species, not to mention hundreds of millions of people living along those coastlines.
Now, I want you to compare the vulnerability of the Victorian era to the very real future you face today. The 1877 El Niño triggered a famine that killed 50 million people across India, China, Brazil, and Africa. Today, those exact same highly climate-sensitive regions hold vastly larger populations. And yes, we've got early warning systems, drought-resilient crops, and forecasting that hands us up to 12 months of lead time to prepare. A direct repeat of 1877's death toll is unlikely. But I want you to imagine heading into the 2026 season. You are walking into it with compound vulnerabilities the Victorians couldn't have even fathomed. Global groundwater aquifers are being sucked dry far faster than they can recharge. Decades of soil degradation have compromised a full third of the world's agricultural land. You're combining brutal enso-driven drought with pre-existing systemic agricultural heat stress. The threat to global food security isn't some distant possibility. It is entirely real. 4 explainers, 1 system. Day 96 was the Walker circulation, the engine. Day 97 was 1877, the engine at maximum power, 50 million dead. Day 98 was La Niña, the cold twin, Pakistan underwater, the Horn of Africa in its 4th consecutive drought year. Day 99 was the jet stream, the delivery mechanism, the wobble, the cage that traps the heat. Today is the question those 4 explainers were asking. What happens to all of it on a warmer planet? I want to give you the answer in 3 levels of confidence: what we know for certain, what the models project, and what remains genuinely open.
So, the crucial point is this. Level 1, high confidence, tells us definitively that baseline amplification is real and it's already happening. Level 2, medium confidence, indicates that extreme super El Niños are likely to double under high emissions. Level 3, low confidence, means the long-term trajectory of total ENSO frequency in the Walker circulation remains a totally open, highly contested scientific question. The machine is identical to the one observed by the archaic Peruvian fishermen who first named the warm current that was ruining their nets. They observed what they couldn't explain. But today, you can fully map this entire planetary system. You can trace a sea surface temperature anomaly in the Pacific directly to a bone-dry riverbed in China, or a blocking high parked over British Columbia. You know exactly what the engine does, but you are running it in a totally unfamiliar environment.
Here's what 100 explainers on this channel add up to if you hold them all at once. The world is more connected than it looks. A patch of warm water in the Pacific and a failed harvest in India. A 3-foot-tall skeleton in a cave on Flores, and a revision of everything we thought we knew about what archaic humans could do. Footprints in the mud of an Ice Age lakebed and the collapse of a century-old archaeological consensus. A skull in a museum drawer for 30 years and an unresolved question about who was alive in China at the dawn of the modern world. The jet stream buckling over British Columbia and a town burning to the ground in 15 minutes. All of it connected. All of it, underneath the individual stories and the specific mechanisms, asking the same question. How much do we actually know, and what does the evidence actually permit us to say?
The answer the ARC has tried to give, every day for 100 days, is here is what is known, here is what is contested, here is what remains genuinely open. That is the only honest answer science has to offer, and it turns out to be more interesting than the tidy version. The Peruvian fishermen who named El Niño did not know what they were naming. They just knew the fish were gone and the warm water had taken them. We know now what the warm water is, where it comes from, what it does to the sky above India and the rivers of China and the ice of the Arctic. We know that it is getting warmer each time it comes, and we know that what happens next depends more than any previous generation of humans has had to confront on decisions being made right now by people who have access to exactly the science this ark has spent 5 days building. 100 explainers. Thank you for every one of them.
Will we adapt to the machine or will it break us first? Tomorrow, Ignaz Semmelweis, the man who proved that doctors were killing their patients, was committed to an asylum for saying so and died there weeks before the world discovered he was right. Day 101. See you there.